slope and rate of change. Okay, so slope. If I just talk about a mountain, okay, a mountain, I'm like, woo, look at the slope of that mountain. What do you think I'm referring to? The steepness, okay? The steepness of that mountain.
That would fuck me.
Yeah. So slope is the steepness of something. So it could be really steep. It could be really steep this way. It could have no steepness, okay? Now, one thing that I want to talk to you all about that some of us don't know is if you are given a graph, okay, any type of graph, and they ask you to read the graph, you always read it from left to right. Okay, so you look at it from the left to the right, just like you read a sentence from left to right. Okay? So slope. Slope is the rate of change in a relationship. So when you're looking at slope, you're looking at the change in that relationship. And we did do slope kind of when we were talking about proportional relationships. So slope, rate of change in a ratio of the change in the y variable over the change in the x variable. And they'll call the y variable the vertical change and x the horizontal change. So it says on a graph of a linear relationship, slope describes the steepness. Right. So there are 4 types of slope, right? 4 of them. The first one, like I said before, you read a graph from left to right. Look at this one. Look at this line from left to right. It's going up. So could you all assume that this graph is positive, right? Right. So a positive slope. A positive slope will be going up from left to right. So anytime that you look at a graph and you're like, oh, I read it from left to right and it's going up, that's a positive slope. So we can assume that if the slope is going down, it's a negative slope. So when you read this one from left to right, it's going down, it's a negative slope. Yeah.
That's actually steepness.
Yes, steepness.
That's like steepness.
STEP, it is. All right, and then there's the other one. This one is not steep. There is no steepness. It's just a flat line, which is called a zero slope. Well, Raymond, what am I going to say? No, the other thing. Yeah, I'm not done. Remember, I spent 10 years in the hood. The hood of high school. I'm from the hood, though. I know all the tricks. He was being funny. Okay, so the last slope, and I think of this as like a treadmill. If I'm gonna, or I guess on a walk, okay, if you're walking somewhere, you're walking up a hill, so it's a positive slope. You're walking down a hill, it's a negative slope. You're walking on flat ground, it's a zero slope. But if I just come over here and I try to run up straight in the air, I can't. I just can't. I defy gravity. I can't just run straight up in the air. And this is called an undefined slope. Okay. So an undefined slope. So 4 types. Up from left to right is positive. Down from left to right is negative. Flat is no slope, so it's a zero slope. But then you can't just run straight up in the air, Jonathan. If I just went like this and tried to run straight up in the air, it's not possible. So they came up with the word undefined. All right. So this next little section here, they just want you to tell whether you think the line is positive, negative, zero, or undefined. So I want you to look at line A. So everybody fill those in.
0.
Hold on, just fill them in on your paper. So right now you should be filling out on those little lines, line A, B, C, and D, whether you think it's got a positive, negative, zero, or undefined. Otherwise, that means your pencil has to be in your hand to be able to write the words. So you look at tells you that down there, line A. Line A. So look at line A. So is that positive, negative, zero, or undefined? I didn't tell us to talk. All right, Jonathan. Jonathan, do you think that line A is it positive, negative, zero, or undefined?
0.
Line A.
0.
Zero. Line A is a flat line. There is no slope to it at all. It's a flat line, which means it has a zero slope. All right, Andy. Line B.
Negative.
It's negative. It's going down from left to right. Okay. Brian, line C.
Undefined.
Undefined. It's undefined, and we can abbreviate it. It's undefined because it's vertical. It's straight up and down. All right, Marilena. Positive. Line B is positive because it's going up from left to right. Right? Yep. Yeah, so here's the thing. You ready? Shh. There's this guy. He's called Slope Dude, and this is a real thing if you want to look it up. He's called Slope Dude, and he likes to ski the slopes. Okay? And he knows that the slopes of his graph are read from left to right. So he thinks of it this way. If he gets on his little skis, okay? And he starts right here, because I always read it from left to right. So if I'm reading line D, I'm reading it from left to right. Is he going to have to go up or down to get up, to go on line B? Up. So since he has to go up, that's a positive distance. So if he was to ride his skis up here, he'd have to go up. But if he was going to ride line B, would he go up or down to ride line B? Down, so that's a negative slope.
Oh, so when I'm skydiving, I'm going negative.
Huh?
But when I'm not being.
But look, you read something from left to right, like this inches. So when I come and look at this graph, shh. When I come and I look at this graph and I'm reading line B starts right here on the left, and I read it to the right. So I'm reading it to the right, which is going down, so it's negative. Line A, I read a graph from left to right, so I start on the left to read line A. Line D, I'm reading it up from left to right, so it's positive. All right, on the back, they're also going to ask you to find slope as a number. A slope is defined as a ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. This right here has got to be starred, circled, highlighted, something. That's what I'm going to preach to you all. Rise over run. Slope is always defined as rise over run. Rise is the vertical change. Run is the horizontal change. If I told you all, and Jerry, listening, if I told you all to rise out of your chair, what would you do?
Stand up.
Stand up. Rise out of your chair means you're going to stand up. Shh. So you're going to count the up and down first. And if I say, hey, will you run? You're moving left and right to run. So rising up is the change in the vertical. Running is the change in the horizontal. So when we're given a slope on a graph, we count the rise over run. So that is so important. Right, go back over here, hunters. Good. Okay, so to do this, you're going to look at any 2 points on your line, and we're not going to draw a right triangle. We're not going to do that. I think that's stupid. What's the part that I just scribbled out? So to be able to find your rise or run, you're just going to find any 2 points on your graph, and you're going to count rise over run. Always reduce your ratio. So like if I say, oh, I think the slope is 5 out of 10, 5/10. What does 5/10 reduce to?
1/2.
1/2. So you should always reduce if you can. Also, you need to make sure that you check to see if it has a positive or a negative slope. So before you ever start looking at a graph, you say, is this positive or is it negative? And then you're going to count rise over run. Okay, so this one right here says, follow the steps to find the slope of the graph. So before I even start counting anything, I first am going to look at this graph, and I'm going to say, is this positive or is it negative? Mine, is this positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, because it's going up from left to right. So I know that this is going to be a positive slope. It's going up from left to right. Now, I'm going to count these 2 points here. So see this point and see this point? I'm going to count the rise over the run. So I'm going to count the up and down, and then I'm going to count the left and right. So I'm going to count the rise. So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rise is 4. And then I'm going to count the run, which is the left and right. 1, 2, 3. So I count the rise over the run. And it says it's positive. So my slope is rise over run, which is 4 hertz. So it's rise over run. She said that like 3 times. Shh. Yep. I count it left and right. So I'm counting from this point to this point. So I went rise 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to get to the other point, I had to run 1, 2, 3. I thought you had to. All right, let's do another one. Alright, so number 2. It says find the slope, and then first line has point shows it for you, you have to practice choosing your own points. Alright, so if I was going to look at this one here, these 2 points. Before I start, I want everybody to answer this question. Before I start on number 2, do you all think this is a positive or a negative slope?
Positive.
Positive, because it's going up from left to right. So I'm just going to write positive here so that I know. All right, then I'm going to count rise over run. So rise is up and down, run is left and right. So ready? I'm going to count from this point to this point. So I'm going to rise 1. And then I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4.
1 over 4.
So my slope is rise over run, and it's positive, so it's 1 over 4. Let's stand up on this. All right, let's look at number 3. I'm going to choose the points for you. So I'm going to choose this one and this one. So put 2 points there. You have to use your pencil on your paper. All right, would you all say as a whole, is this positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative, because it's going down from left to right, so it's negative. Okay, then I'm going to count, because I know my slope's going to be negative, so I'm going to put a negative there. Okay, I'm going to count rise over run. It doesn't matter which way you count. You count the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. It does not matter. Okay, so I'm going to rise. I'm going to always start here. So I'm going to rise 1, 2, and I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's say Fuller said, no, Miss Wilson, I want to count from here to here. So he's going to rise 1, 2, and run 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that okay?
Yes.
Because look, it's the same. All right, so my slope here, my slope is a rise of 2, a run of 4. So negative 2 fourths. But we said, if you can reduce it, you should. And Brian, what does that reduce to? Negative 1/2. I'm going to do another one. Woo! Whoa, hot dog! Look at these numbers on the side. What are they counting by?
3.
By 3s. They're counting by 3s. So you're going to have to watch out for that. So let's put some points on here. Let's do this one and this one. I'm choosing points that go perfectly through a corner. All right, will this slope be positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive because it's going up from left to right. And then I'm going to count. But remember, when I count the rise, I'm going to count by what? 3s. All right, so you ready? 3, 6, 9. So I rose 9. So that's counting by 3s there. And then I'm going to run 1, 2. So I rose 9, ran 2. So my slope is positive 9 halves. Now, one thing I didn't tell you all that I forgot just now. Slope is not a decimal. Slope is a whole number or a fraction, whether that fraction be proper and improper. But slope is not a decimal or a mixed number. No. Because remember we said on the side, it's counting by 3s. So when I count at my 9, I count from here to here. 3, 6, 9. All right, I want you all to try this one. There's your points. And this one. Everybody can do it right now. Try 5, you can do 5, 6, and 7.
We're doing 6,
Yeah, that's fine.
but there's no dot.
It's okay, you don't need it. Well, you actually have to look at the board once in a while to understand something, Andy. Is it positive or negative? Okay, so if we look at number 5, is it positive or negative? Positive, because it's going up from left to right. Then I'm going to count. Rise, over, run. So rise, run. Rise. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I rise 4. And I run. 1, 2, 3. So it's rise, over, run. So it's positive 4 over 3. Yep. She's over here. Okay. All right, number 7. I'll go back to number 6. Number 7, is it positive or negative? Negative. And I'm going to count rise over run. So I'm going to go rise. Rise is up and down. So 1, 2. And I'm going to run. 1, 2. So 2 over 2, which is? Well, what kind of slope was it?
Negative.
Negative, so it's a negative 1.
Wait, how is it? It's negative, it's 1 down. Yeah. Wait, hold on.
But
Going up, it counts by 2.
ready? Yeah. So 1, 2. 1, 2. So it's still 2 over 2. Still 2 over 2, which is 1.
Okay. I don't get
All
it.
right, I'll look at it. All right, number 6. Shh. Is number 6 positive or negative?
0.
No.
Question mark.
Undefined. Look, if we come back, shh. We come back. Positive is up from left to right. Negative is down from left to right. 0 is flat. But I can't stand here and just jump straight up in the air and start running. That's impossible. So a vertical line like that is undefined. And we can abbreviate it.
That's like one of them. We just put that on.
Yeah, you just put undefined. All right, one more thing. You're just gonna put these at the bottom of your paper. Shh. I didn't ask to talk. Shh. All right, so just at the bottom of your paper, you're gonna find the slope here. You're gonna have to look up here and count. Yeah, so just write the answer at the bottom. Find the slope. So what's the slope of these? So just tell me what the slope is. Just write it somewhere on your paper. I'll move my mouse. All right, so this first one, is this positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. And I'm gonna count right. Oh wait, why did I say positive negative?
Yeah, I said negative.
I was like,
You said positive. You
okay.
said positive. I said that's different.
Okay. So this one's negative, and I'm gonna look. I'm gonna count rise over run. So I'm gonna go down one. I'm gonna run 1, 2, 3. So my slope is negative. What? 1/3.
God.
There has to be rise over run. It can never be run over run. It's always rise over run. So up, down first, and then left, right. Well, it's still 1/3. It's still 1, and then 1, 2, 3. Yeah, because you put run over rise. Has to be rise over run. It has to be the vertical over the horizontal. All right, this one, positive or negative? Positive. And I'm going to look. I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to run 1. So it's 3 over 1, which is 3. That's a slope of 3. You've got to put the rise over the run. Right? I'm going to explain the homework real quick, and then we're going to spend the last 20 minutes doing that. Shh. Don't talk right now. All right, everybody look up here. So this one is just matching. You're just going to put A, B, C, D, E, F in here. Down here. Pay attention. It says each of the line segments in the word math are numbered. Find the slope. So like on number 1, line number 1. Right looking, because I don't want 100 questions. Line number 1. Here's line number 1. What kind of slope is that? Undefined, because it's a vertical. So I'll just put undefined here. Right? All right, let's look at number 2. Hold on. Line 2. Line 2 is negative. It's negative, and I'm going to count. And I'm going to count rise over run. Pay attention. I'm about ready to start writing fractions to a ton of people. I'm obviously, you have no voice, and I'm screaming because you all can't listen. I have to talk over you. All right, so looking at this number 2 line, I count rise over run from this point to this point. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to run 1, 2, 3. So this slope is negative rise over run. So it's negative 4/3. And you're going to do that for each of the lines. Right? Everybody understanding? Okay, so I'm going to pass that out and we're going to work quietly on it. We're not sleeping. We're not talking about lunch.